Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodney Hakim, and I welcome you to New York Shakespeare's deep dive into Julius Caesar. Tonight is Monday night, March 14th. It's Pi Day, actually, and we're just hours away from March 15th, or it's the Ides of March. So we are so close to the fateful day in which Julius Caesar unfortunately met his grisly demise. For those of you who are new to New York Shakespeare, my name is Rodney Hakim. What New York Shakespeare is all about is we try to bring you as much as we can as what's happening in the world of Shakespeare in New York, whether that is stage performances, film screenings, book readings, whatever the case might be. As long as it pertains to Shakespeare and it's happening in or around New York, we try to bring that to you across our various social media platforms. We're right here on Instagram, instagram.com/New York Shakespeare. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/NY Shakespeare, or our group, facebook.com/groups/NY Shakespeare. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/NY Shakespeare. We are on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on WordPress, and in sundry other places. So pretty much anywhere where there's social media, there is New York Shakespeare. We try to cover and bring to you as much as we can as what we see happening around us in the vast, rich tapestry that is the world of Shakespeare here in New York. Tonight we have a wonderful program for you. We have a deep dive into Julius Caesar. As I said, we're on the precipice of the Ides of March. That's tomorrow, March 15th. And for those who are new to this, to the idea of the Ides of March. What is the Ides of March? The Ides of March is the date that was predicted by the soothsayer as they told Julius Caesar that this was the day that he would meet his unfortunate end. And that does come to pass in the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. We have fantastic performers joining us here tonight, and they'll be joining us a little bit later in the program. We have Leah Hatto Robinson, we have Sarah Himes, and we have Megan Greener. Three wonderful performers. They'll be joining us a little bit later in the program to do some speaking of the text, to speak out some of the wonderful words of Shakespeare, and to give life to Brutus, Cassius, Caesar, and many of the other roles that are represented in Julius Caesar. Before we delve deeper into the characters and into the play itself and into the performances, before we invite our performers on, let's step back and get a sense of what Julius Caesar and the Ides of March are all about. Yes, at the very simplest level, the Ides of March is when the soothsayer said that Julius Caesar would die, but why would that be a big deal in the time of Shakespeare? Why was Julius Caesar a big play in the time of Shakespeare? We know that Julius Caesar came about in Shakespeare's time around 1599. For those who are maybe less familiar with the history of what was happening in Elizabethan England at that time, Queen Elizabeth had a long, wonderful reign as the Queen of England, being the daughter of Henry VIII. Henry VIII never had a male heir. He only had Elizabeth, and Elizabeth took over as queen. She had an excellent reign as the monarch of England, but in 1599 her days were winding down. In 1601 she was replaced by James I of Scotland, who was her closest, or King Henry VIII's closest blood relative, because Queen Elizabeth herself never married, never had a male heir, never had any heir of her own to whom to pass on the kingdom. So, as we see here, already we are seeing some parallelism in what is happening in Elizabethan England with the end of the reign of Queen Elizabeth and what is happening in Julius Caesar. In Julius Caesar, we barely see Julius Caesar himself at all. We see all the machinations of what is happening around him. We see Brutus and Cassius plotting and planning and debating as to who should be the rightful monarch. Cassius feels that Julius Caesar has become too powerful and is a tyrant, and Brutus is an idealist of sorts, and he maybe is reluctant to bring Julius Caesar down because of their friendship, but he feels compelled because of his nobility to have the rightful person be the regent, the monarch, or the emperor of Rome. So there's that tension, much as with England, as Elizabeth was reaching the final years, the final days of her reign as queen, and there was uncertainty. This is coming after hundreds of years of war between the opposing clans in England, which was brought to a head at the time of King Henry. King Henry was a very strong monarch, but he was also a monarch who, despite his grandeur, despite his strength, wasn't necessarily the best for the people of England. There is a suggestion that King Henry, with his lavish spending, with his lavish lifestyle, with his love of opulence and luxurious objects, bankrupted England twice. And one of the things that he spent a great deal of money on were luxury items, including Arras tapestries. You hear the Arras tapestry being mentioned in Hamlet, where Polonius hides behind the Arras counterpoint. This was, for King Henry, the ultimate luxury item, the ultimate status symbol of the day, the tapestry. And even in Hampton Court, which was the main residence of King Henry VIII, there still is to this day, there was a grand set of tapestries depicting the biblical father Abraham, whom Henry VIII likened himself to. He saw himself as a transformative figure, as a person who was willing to buck the system and change the order of what is going on. He saw himself as the next great transformative figure after Abraham, who was represented in these first set of tapestries in Hampton Court, and the next best set of tapestries in Hampton Court was of Julius Caesar. And those have been scattered to the four winds over the past several centuries. In another endeavor in which I'm involved, a company called pgny.com, we actually we handle antiquities and rare textiles, and one of the things that we have in our collection is a rare tapestry that once came through the halls of Henry VIII that depicts Julius Caesar. And because of this historically important tapestry that we have, we got connected with one of the chief scholars in the world, one of the chief historians in the world, who has perhaps more knowledge about ancient Rome and Julius Caesar than perhaps anyone else in the world at this point, is the historian Mary Beard, who has written such wonderful books. Let me see if I can bring up the image. Such wonderful books as SPQR, as the Colosseum, as Ultimate Rome, and the forthcoming The 12 Caesars. So we had the opportunity to have several discussions with Mary Beard and her colleague Roger Michael of the Digital Institute of Archaeology about the Julius Caesar tapestries and what they meant to, oh, no, I don't mean to do that, what they meant to King Henry VIII. Stop sharing. Okay. So it became obvious that these expressions of richness, these status symbols, the tapestries, the gold, whatever other, the jewelry, whatever it was, were so important to Henry that he siphoned away the money that was due to the public to pay for these extravagances. So when Elizabeth I succeeded her father as the regent, as the Queen of England, one of the big things she had to do was to recoup the money that was lost. And one of the manners in which this was done was in prudent spending, but also in various conflicts that Elizabeth had. So you have, in England, you have people that are weary of hundreds of years of infighting and civil unrest between the different factions wanting power, and you also have a history of a very opulent monarch who, in his grandeur, in his splendor, didn't actually do so well by the common man. So as we get to the play of Julius Caesar, what we're going to see, and some of the things we'll be discussing, we'll be playing out with our performers, is the difference between how the common man, how the masses, how the plebeians are represented, and how the aristocrats, the leaders, the regents, how they are represented. There's a very obvious difference, perhaps more so in Julius Caesar than in most other Shakespeare plays, between the blank prose that is used for the commoners and the rhyming couplets, the verse, not the rhyming couplets, but the blank verse that is used for the gentry, for the aristocracy, and we'll see how that's manifested. So Henry VIII clearly aligning himself as a Julius Caesar type figure, and Queen Elizabeth, his daughter, who has brought stability to England, but is at the end of her tenure, and the looming departure of her and the incoming reign of her next of kin, James I of Scotland, the unification of England and Scotland, it's weighing heavily on the people of England at this time. So Shakespeare, we're getting back to Shakespeare himself. Shakespeare in this time has become increasingly popular. His company has become one of the favorites of Elizabeth. She has asked for many performances and indeed more shows about Falstaff. She loves Falstaff. The Merry Wives of Windsor is done to please Queen Elizabeth. So there's a lot of suggestion that this play, Julius Caesar, being done in 1599, towards the end of Elizabeth's reign, when she is clearly has her hands in Shakespeare's Shakespeare's company and having performances done at court. Whether this was done specifically for her, we don't know, but is definitely being done in the historical context where the audience, or one of the most significant members of that audience, is Elizabeth herself. So the question arises, is the depiction of Julius Caesar here, is this in some way hearkening back to Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII, and his obsession with being the next Julius Caesar? Or is it in some way some kind of analog, the occurrences that are happening of the regent, the powerful regent of Caesar, who is about to be deposed? We get the warning, we get the soothsayer telling us in advance, this is going to happen on the Ides of March. You're going to die on the Ides of March. Are we seeing this anxiety, this common understanding that the great queen that has unified the country and brought stability is about to disappear? So that's a question that we'll be tackling tonight. We have many other questions to discuss. We have the discussion about the female characters in the play. We have the wives of Brutus, that's Portia, and we have the wife of Caesar, that is Calpurnia. We'll be doing the full scenes between those sets of characters and seeing what kind of echoes we might find in those characters and those representations and what is happening elsewhere in the play. So before we go any further, let me invite the audience. If you haven't already seen, you have a text box, a chat box at the bottom page. Feel free to send us your thoughts, your questions, your reactions, and we'll be happy to answer as many questions as we can. At this time, I'd like to invite our three participants, our three wonderful performers, to join us, and we'll start the performance section of the evening. Let me invite my friend Leo Hatto. Leo Hatto is a fantastic actor, and I first came across Leo Hatto a couple of years ago when he was involved with a group that I know very well, and that is Gorilla Rep. Leo Hatto.
Hey there! I've got to turn this thing around.
You do. You know, it's very eerie. Yeah. I didn't see you, but I saw a wisp of smoke rising in the background. It looked so
yeah,
eerily
that's right. That was the dust from the books.
So Leo Hatto, as I was mentioning, we know you from the Gorilla Rep film version of Macbeth, where you played the title role, and for me that was one of the best performances of the last couple of years. Really, just a fantastic performance. And you have many other things you're doing. You're in film, you're in TV, you're on stage, you're all over the place. And we won't say what it is, but there's another project from Gorilla Rep for which you're involved.
Yeah.
It's hush hush. We won't say anything yet, but there's another biggie that's on the way.
Yeah.
So,
on the horizon.
Leo Hatto, we are very, very happy to have you join us here tonight. How have you been, Leo Hatto?
Thanks for having me. I am well. It's nighttime, so now I can relax, sort of. And thank you for the opportunity to do this. I'm interested to see what comes out.
Okay. All right. We're going to be doing some acting and some exploring. So let me invite our next participant to join us, and that is Megan Greener. And she is of one of our favorite groups around town, the very jocular group called Hamlet Isn't Dead. They are very, very, they're not self-serious at all. Hello, Megan.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I was just talking you up. You are from the group Hamlet Isn't Dead, and that's one of my favorite scrappy little groups around town.
We are scrappy.
You're scrappy, and you guys, I love the fact that you guys are so irreverent about yourselves. You're so self-deprecating about yourselves. I think that the running tagline is that you're the 489th best Shakespeare group in New York or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. The numbers fluctuate every time.
They fluctuate. I think at one point you guys were up to the 37th or something like that. So I'm hoping you're gonna crack the top 20 at some point.
That must have been a good night.
But Megan, you are a performer of stage and screen. You are also an educator.
I am. I am. I work with developing artists. It's a great youth arts company.
Okay, all right. And I've seen Megan on stage, and she's just fantastic. So I'm really thrilled that you're joining us here tonight. Thank you for being here tonight, Megan.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll ask our final participant, and that is Sarah Himes to join us as well. And while Sarah is coming on board, Sarah is much like Megan. She's also a performer. And hello, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for joining us. We're pulling Sarah away from a rehearsal. Sarah, what are you rehearsing tonight?
Oh,
What were you rehearsing?
I'm actually behind the table on this project. I'm helping sort of co-direct a group of undergraduate students at Mary Baldwin University. They're doing a production of Susan Laurie Park's 365 Plays, 365 Days.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you are much like our other participants. You're a stage and screen performer. You're an educator. You're directing. You're doing all kind of things. You're all over the place.
All over.
All over the place. And you have an affiliation with another group that is prominent here in the city, and that's the Hedge Pig Ensemble.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I've
I
been
think
with Hedgepig for years.
I think that the big thing that they're working on right now is they're expanding the Canon project, right?
You're right. That's right. Yeah, that's my plug. Thanks for giving my plug.
You got it. You got it. We're going to keep plugging all the way through. So there's going to be no shortage of that. All right. So we gave a brief kind of background, or maybe not so brief, of the historical context in which all this is happening, that Julius Caesar is appearing in front of the audience of Elizabethan England. And Shakespeare, as I mentioned in the talk-up, he in some ways, maybe veiled, maybe not so veiled, is playing to Queen Elizabeth. But in the more immediate sense, we have the audience that's composed of all kind of different members of society. You have the groundlings who are up front. You have, the wealthier classes who are on the elevated areas. But what I'm concerned with here is that we're looking tonight at a play that's all about the military and about the ruling class, the commoners, the military, and the ruling class, and the differences between those strata of society. And something that's been suggested is by various people that I've spoken to is that the composition of the groundlings was a lot of people who are military people, a lot of people who are war veterans, who are between military campaigns. And this is their big popcorn action flick that they come to on the weekend. This is what they have their few shillings or their few farthings or whatever the thing is, and their few pence, and they're coming to see the big entertainment of the day. So Julius Caesar is situated in kind of a strange way, and some people even call it a problem play, because it comes after the histories. We've already had our Henrys, we've already had all of our history plays, and we're not quite at the big tragedies yet. Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello all come a year or two later. So we're in kind of like this nebulous in-between phase. And some people say that, this is more of a history play because it's a historical subject, and others say that, this really lends itself more to a tragedy, and others find it kind of somewhere in between. Do you have any thoughts, panel, about what your reactions are to the play, to Julius Caesar, to productions that you've seen? Okay, I'll give you time. We'll come back to that question later in the program. Okay, so something else to keep in mind. In recent productions in New York City, about 3-4 years ago, I don't know if you all remember, there was a production in Central Park Public Theater doing the Shakespeare in the Park, where they did Julius Caesar as their summer production. And famously or infamously, that production had Julius Caesar as a stand-in of sorts, or an analog for Donald Trump. And that created very, very strong reactions. Some people loved it, some people hated it. It became a cultural flashpoint of sorts because it was almost too on the nose, too hot button kind of thing. And my contention is that, to me, Julius Caesar for Shakespeare is that same kind of thing, where I think there are so many connections to what's happening in Elizabethan society with the different people who are have their machinations behind the scenes of wanting to be the one to be the next kingmaker once Elizabeth reaches the end of her reign, or who have, in different ways, tried to elevate themselves in society. So you have the people who could be analogous to Brutus and to Cassius. Caesar, whether that's some kind of analog to Elizabeth or someone else in society, uh, ultimately will fall. Her end is nigh, and coming up very soon after her is James the First. Whether that is an analog to Mark Antony or to Octavian or whoever that might be, we'll kind of play with those ideas. Just keep it in the back of your mind as we go along. But what we'll proceed with now, we'll jump into some of the text. We're not going to go through the entire play. We have selected scenes, selected monologues that just kind of give us flashpoints as to what's happening throughout the play. And for me, something else about Julius Caesar, I don't know if you have the same reaction, is that perhaps more so than any other Shakespeare, it's a play of speeches. It's a play of there's some great dialogue, and we'll jump into some of that dialogue. But it's a play of the public speaking their mind, and then you have these professional orators. You have people who are politicians who their job is to use their rhetoric to convince people to move society in the direction they want to move it. Okay, so bearing all that in mind, let us jump into our first speech of the evening, and that is going to be Sarah. You are going to be our commoner, so to speak. You are going to be Marulus. And this is, for those who want to follow along, this is Act 1, Scene 1. Go ahead, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome, to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day with patient expectation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made an universal shout, that Tiber trembled underneath her banks, to hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores? And do you now put on your best attire? And do you now call out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers in his way that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood? Be gone. Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude.
So what's our reaction? What's happening here, guys? This seems to be like to me, it's like the groundswell of dissatisfaction with Caesar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it kind of like, at least how I receive it, is it's spotlighting the sort of the wishy-washy flip-floppiness of the public, depending on like whoever the top dog is in the moment. Right. That's who they're for.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the big ways in which the public is criticized throughout the text, is that they vacillate so easily between whoever pulls them in whichever direction. Let's jump into our next big speech, Cassius. That is from Leah Hatto. Cassius is one of the big movers and shakers in this whole thing. He seems to be like a little bit more a veteran of these machinations, of these internecine, behind the scenes conflicts that are pulling in one direction or another. Lihato, any thoughts before we jump into this one? This is Act 1, Scene 2.
I think it's that old story of two men who grew up together, and one's in the limelight and one's not, and politically trying to he's making an adjustment. That's probably the best way I can say it. Or and so it's interesting to hear through words how it manifests while trying to convince Brutus that it's an honorable thing. I mean,
right
in his mind,
right,
wherever his mind is.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Let's jump in.
All right. I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as lief not be as lived to be in all of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. For once upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, "Dearest thou Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point." Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. Oh, the torrent roared, and we did buffet with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with our hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink." I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man is now become a god. And Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body, if Caesar carelessly, but not on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. His coward lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bend doth awe the world, did lose his lustre. I did hear him groan, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, "Give me some drink, Tintinius," as a sick girl. Ye gods, it doth amaze me, a man of such feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone.
So a growing discontent with Caesar. It seems like the ire of the both classes, the ruling class and the elite class, is rising against him. There's another speech that comes up right after this. Go ahead, Leahato.
Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fate. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. Brutus and Caesar, what should be in that Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? Write them together, yours is as fair a name. Sound them, it doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them, it is as heavy. Conjure with them, Brutus will start a spirit as soon as Caesar. Now, in the names of all the gods at once, upon what meat doth this our Caesar feed, that he is grown so great? Age, thou art shamed! Rome, thou hast lost the breed of noble bloods! When went there by an age since the great flood, but it was famed with more than with one man? When could they say till now that talked of Rome, that her wide walls encompassed but one man? Now is it Rome indeed, and room enough, when there is in it but one only man? Oh, you and I have heard our fathers say there was a Brutus once that would have brooked the eternal devil to keep his state in Rome as easily as a king.
So this is some strong imagery that you're pulling up, Leahato, as Cassius. It seems like it's almost as if you're painting Caesar as a devil of sorts,
well, it's a little strong.
A little strong, just a bit, just a skosh. That's the power of the of rhetoric of the. Pardon me while I'm just, by the way, just a technical note. I'm just switching over to these Bluetooth earbuds, and they keep on falling out. So if at some point the show stops, or you hear thump thump thump, that's my earbud falling out. That's my earbud falling out. Okay, but nonetheless, yeah. So obviously there's some great discontent with Caesar, and we see Cassius moving not only against Caesar in the domain of the or in respect to the public, but also in terms of influencing Brutus, who is perhaps Caesar's closest ally. Megan, should we jump into Brutus? That is Act 1, Scene 2.
Sure. That you do love me, I am nothing jealous. What you would work me to, I have some aim. How I have thought of this, and of these times I shall recount hereafter. For this present, I would not, so in love I might entreat you, be any further moved. What you have said I will consider. What you have to say I will with patience hear, and find a time both meet to hear and answer such high things. Till then, my noble friend, chew upon this. Brutus had rather be a villager than to repute himself a son of Rome under these hard conditions at this time is like to lay upon us.
Right. So Megan, where do you feel Brutus is at this time? Early on, with all this stuff coming from Cassius trying to sway him, where do you feel like Brutus is at right now?
That Cassius has certainly made a great argument, and it feels like in this moment Brutus has really absorbed what he has said, but needs to sit with it a bit and like give me a second, give me time to myself, and I'll decide what needs to be done.
Right, absolutely. So something that I was referencing earlier is, and we're kind of going to come to this in a bit, is the idea of succession. And in Elizabethan England, of course, the big thing was that neither Henry VIII, he didn't have a male heir, and Elizabeth has no heir. She's the quote unquote virgin queen. So there is no clear successor that is coming up to follow her, and there is that great uncertainty as to what comes next. With Caesar, both with Caesar and with Brutus, we have a similar issue where there is no clear successor for Caesar, who has become the regent, who is the strong man of sorts of Rome, and he doesn't have anyone to pass it along to. So the machinations increase as to not only determining whether he's fit to rule or not, but even if he were to rule, what would come next. So here's a bit from. We don't really get to see much of Caesar at all. We only get a speech or two and a little bit of a push and pull with Calpurnia, which is coming up. But here's one of his brief forays. Here's Caesar. This is Act 1, Scene 2. Would he were fatter, but I fear him not. Yet if my name were liable to fear, I do not know the man I should avoid. So soon as that spare Cassius. He reads much. He is a great observer, and he looks quite through the deeds of men. He loves no plays, as does Antony. He hears no music. Seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he be never at heart's ease, whiles they behold a greater than themselves, and therefore are they very dangerous. I rather tell thee what is to be feared than what I fear, for always I am Caesar. Come on my right hand, for this ear is deaf, and tell me truly what thou thinkst of him. So there's this, to me, there's this almost obsessive wanting to know who's around him and who's doing what. It's not like Caesar is unaware of the daggers that are starting to come out quite literally against him. But whether he is potent enough to do anything about it remains to be seen. And we'll come to that, especially in the scene with Calpurnia. Okay, Sarah, we're going to jump over to you. We are going into the later end of Act 1, Scene 2, and this is Casca. Go ahead, Sarah.
I can as well be hanged as tell the manner of it. It was mere foolery. I did not mark it. I saw Mark Antony offer him a crown, yet 'twas not a crown neither. 'Twas one of these coronets. And, as I told you, he put it by once. But for all that, to my thinking, he would fain have had it. Then he offered it to him again. Then he put it by again. But to my thinking, he was very loath to lay his fingers off it. And then he offered it the third time. He put it the third time by. And still, as he refused it, the rabblement hooted and clapped their chapped hands and threw up their sweaty nightcaps and uttered such a deal of stinking breath because Caesar refused the crown that it had almost choked Caesar. For he swoonded and fell down at it. And for mine own part, I durst not laugh for fear of opening my lips and receiving the bad air.
So we were talking before about how the difference between the different classes and how they perceive each other, and we have some very strong language about the masses, about how they're the ravelment and how they clap their chapped hands and threw up their sweaty nightcaps. It's pretty strong language. So that it seems like there's a lot of hatred from all ends for everyone else. There's not a great deal of love going around here. You know, I don't know if you guys know the book. There was a book that I used to always come across back in my coaching days called Audition by Michael Shurtleff. And one of my favorite, do you know that one? And one of my favorite things that I would always pull from that was the where's the love in this scene? Mm-hmm. And how a good acting scene, you always have to find the love in it. And I don't know how much love.
All right.
Oh, found it. Go to our next scene. We're going back to Cassius, and we're about to round out Act 1. We've spent a lot of time in Act 1, Scene 2, but this is where a lot of the stuff gets set up for the rest of the play. Leah Hutto, we'll jump back to you and Cassius. Act 1, Scene 2, 271.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brutus, thou art noble, yet I see thy honorable metal may be wrought. From that it is disposed. Therefore it is meet that noble minds keep ever with their likes. For who so firm that cannot be seduced? Caesar doth bear me hard, but he loves Brutus. If I were Brutus now, and he were Cassius, he should not humor me. I will, this night, in several hands in at his windows throw, as if they came from several citizens, writings all tending to the great opinion that Rome holds of his name, wherein obscurely Caesar's ambition shall be glanced at. And after this let Caesar seat him sure, for we will shake him, or worse days endure.
And then we have that wonderful rhyming couplet to wrap out that one. So it seems, whenever there's a rhyming couplet that wraps up, it seems like things are really kind of coalescing, like the ideas are really kind of congealing. I don't know if you know, there's that great speech in Othello where Iago he determines how he's going to plan to destroy Othello, and that always has that little rhyming couplet in. Okay, so Leah Hutto, what's happening there for you? As we wrap up this big 1-2.
It's a little fun because he realized who Brutus is, and so he's figuring out the way to Brutus's heart and kind of orchestrating an entire Sparta's web for the Brutus to walk into. So it's in that moment. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's he doesn't reveal much, but you see a lot just within that phrase. I mean, that's pretty much all I can.
No, that's
see. I mean,
that's great. Okay, we're going to jump past Act 1, Scene 2. We saw a lot of speeches in Act 1, Scene 2. A lot of conflicting strategies starting to come out. Let's jump into Casca and Cicero. This is Act 1, Scene 3. Casca will be Sarah, and Cicero will be Megan.
Are not you moved when all the sway of earth shakes like a thing unfirm? Oh, Cicero, I have seen tempests when the scolding winds have rived the knotty oaks, and I have seen the ambitious ocean swell and rage and foam to be exalted with the threatening clouds. But never till tonight, never till now, did I go through a tempest dropping fire. Either there is a civil strife in heaven, or else the world, too saucy with the gods, incenses them to send destruction.
Why? Saw you anything more wonderful?
A common slave, you know him well by sight, held up his left hand, which did inflame and burn like 20 torches joined, and yet his hand, not sensible of fire, remained unscorched. Besides, I had not since put up my sword against the Capitol. I met a lion who glared upon me and went surely by without annoying me. And there were drawn upon a heap 100 ghastly women, transformed with their fear, who swore they saw men all in fire walk up and down the streets. And yesterday, the bird of night did sit, even at noonday, upon the marketplace, hooting and shrieking. When these prodigies do so conjointly meet, let not men say, these are their reasons, they are natural. For I believe they are portentous things unto the climate that they point upon.
Okay. All right. So this, for some reason, this one reminds me in some way. I see a little bit of echoes of different plays or foreshadowing of other plays. For me, this is very much like the scene in Macbeth where they're talking about the horses eating themselves and nature being out of joint. So we're seeing a lot of that build up of the disaster is impending. Okay, let's wrap up Act 1, Scene 3. Leonto, this is the next big speech from Cassius.
Okay. You are dull, Casca. And those sparks of life that should be in a Roman you do want, or else you use not. You look pale, and gaze, and put on fear, and cast yourself in wonder to see the strange impatience of the heavens. But if you would consider the true cause, why all these fires, why all these gliding ghosts, why birds and beasts from quality and kind, why old men fool and children calculate, why all these things change from their ordinance, their natures and preformed faculties to monstrous quality. Why, you shall find that heaven hath infused them with these spirits, to make them instruments of fear and warning unto some monstrous state. Now could I, Casca, name to thee a man most like this dreadful night, that thunders, lightens, opens graves, and roars as doth the lion in the Capitol, a man no mightier than thyself or me, in personal action, yet prodigious grown, and fearful as these strange eruptions are.
So we're steadily chipping away at the godlike figure of Caesar, bringing him, cutting him down to size, right?
Mm.
Okay, just a little bit, Act 2, we're going to jump in. This is we're starting to see now that Cassius has spent so much time swaying Brutus and trying to bring him to his side of the equation. Let's jump into what Brutus has to say. This is Megan, Act 2, Scene 1.
It must be by his death. And for my part, I know no personal cause to spurn at him, but for the general. He would be crowned. How that might change his nature, there's the question. It is the bright day that brings forth the adder, and that craves wary walking. Ground him that, and then I grant we put a sting in him, that at his will he may do danger with. The abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power. And to speak truth of Caesar, I have not known when his affection swayed more than his reason. But 'tis a common proof that lowliness is a young ambition's ladder, whereto the climber upward turns his face. But when he once attains the upmost round, he then unto the ladder turns his back, looks in the clouds, scorning the base degrees by which he did ascend. So Caesar may. Then, lest he may, prevent. And since the quarrel will bear no color for the thing he is, fashion it thus, that what he is, augmented, would run to these and these extremities, and therefore think him as a serpent's egg, which hatched would, in his kind, grow mischievous, and kill him in the shell.
What are you feeling about that, Megan? Where is Brutus at this point now in Act 2, as opposed to where he was in Act 1?
Well, it looks like he's decided the killing of Caesar is the only option, and really it's just for preventative measures. It's not, he hasn't done anything horrible yet, but it's stopping it before it starts.
Right. Or to stop him before any further ill becomes Rome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're about to jump into one of my favorite portions of the of Julius Caesar, and this is the scene with Portia and Brutus, and so much of what happens in Julius Caesar is about what is said in the public square. the orators, the leaders speaking to the public. And so much of it is about what happens behind the scenes, whether it is the political machinations, Cassius trying to sway Brutus, or whatever else is happening. Here is kind of a flip side of that coin. This is the internal things that are happening for some of our main characters. We have Brutus at home after all the convincing he's just gotten from Cassius, at home with his wife Portia. And we'll talk a bit after this about where we see the role of female figures in the play. Here we have Sarah doing Portia, and we have Leahato jumping in as Brutus.
Brutus, my lord.
Portia, what mean you? Wherefore rise you now? Is it not for your health thus to commit your weak condition to the raw cold morning?
Nor for yours neither. You ungently, Brutus, stole from my bed, and yesternight at supper you suddenly arose and walked about musing and sighing with your arms across, and when I asked you what the matter was, you stared upon me with ungentle looks. I urged you further, then you scratched your head, and too impatiently stamped with your foot. Yet I insisted, yet you answered not, but with an angry wafture of your hand gave sign for me to leave you. So I did, fearing to strengthen the impatience which seemed too much unenkindled, and withal hoping it was but an effect of humor which sometime hath his hour with every man. It will not let you eat, nor talk, nor sleep. And could it work so much upon your shape as it hath much prevailed on your condition, I should not know you, Brutus. Dear my lord, make me acquainted with your cause of grief.
I am not well in health, and that is all.
Brutus is wise, and were he not in health, he would embrace the means to come by it.
Why, so I do. Good Portia, go to bed.
Is Brutus sick? And is it physical to walk unbraced and suck up the humors of the dank morning? What, is Brutus sick? And will he steal out of his wholesome bed to dare the vile contagion of the night and tempt the rheumy and unpurged air to add unto his sickness? No, my Brutus, you have some sick offense within your mind, which by the right and virtue of my place I ought to know of. And upon my knees I charm you by my once commended beauty, by all your vows of love, and that great vow which did incorporate and make us one, that you unfold to me yourself, your half, why you are heavy, and what men tonight have had resort to you, for here have been some 6 or 7 who did hide their faces even from darkness.
Kneel not, gentle Portia.
I should not need, if you were gentle, Brutus. Within the bond of marriage, tell me, Brutus, is it expected I should know no secrets that appertain to you? Am I yourself but, as it were, in sort or limitation, to keep with you at meals, comfort your bed, and talk to you sometimes? Dwell I but in the suburbs of your good pleasure? If it be no more, Portia is Brutus's harlot, not his wife.
You are my true and honorable wife, as dear to me as are the ruddy drops that visit my sad heart.
If this were true, then should I know this secret? I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman that Lord Brutus took to wife. I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman well reputed, Cato's daughter. Think you I am no stronger than my sex, being so fathered and so husbanded? Tell me your counsels, I will not disclose them. I have made strong proof of my constancy, giving myself a voluntary wound here in the thigh. Can I bear that with patience and not my husband's secrets?
Oh, you gods, render me worthy of this noble wife. Hark. Hark, one knocks. Portia, go in a while, and by thy bosom shall partake the secrets of my heart. All my engagements I will construe to thee, all the charactery of my sad brow. Leave me with haste.
So, do the two of you have any reaction to that? Any feeling about what's happening there? Sarah, does that call upon anything for you, that relationship between the two of them?
Yeah, they're partnership, they're a team. They're not an old-fashioned stay in the kitchen type of husband-wife situation. And I love their partnership. I love this scene. And I love, that they have a strong relationship because she's able to stand up to him and say, this isn't how we do this. What is going on?
Right.
I know that there's something up. This isn't just you in a bad mood. So,
Right.
and the fact that it's problematic, but that she knifes herself in the thigh to prove it. I mean, she's like, we are each other's ride or die. So what's going on? Yeah.
Right. And Brutus, Lehato, where do you think Brutus is at this point? He just kind of steeled himself to the idea of that Caesar's got to go, but then
I think the pressure is getting to him, and through the sighing and the things that Portia describes, she sees, and so, but he wants to protect his wife from that,
right.
Well. To
the extent possible, given everything that's going on. Okay, so almost immediately after this, that was Act 2, Scene 1, I believe. This is Act 2, Scene 2, and we have almost a direct parallel to what just happened with Portia and Brutus, and this time it is with Caesar and Calpurnia. So let's jump into this. Megan, you'll read Calpurnia here. I'll read Caesar. Nor heaven nor earth have been at peace tonight. Thrice hath Calpurnia in her sleep cried out, "Help, ho! They murder Caesar." Who's within?
My lord.
Go, bid the priests do present sacrifice, and bring me their opinions of success.
I will, my lord.
Here's
Here's Decius Brutus.
Go ahead.
He shall tell them so.
Caesar, all hail. Good morrow, worthy Caesar. I come to fetch you to the Senate House.
And you are come in very happy time to bear my greeting to the senators and tell them that I will not come today. Cannot is false, and that I dare not false, sir. I will not come today. Tell them so, Decius.
Say he is sick.
Shall Caesar send a lie? Have I in conquest stretched mine arms so far to be afeared and tell the greybeards the truth? Decius, go tell them Caesar will not come.
Most mighty Caesar, let me know some cause, lest I be laughed at when I tell them so.
The cause is in my will. I will not come. That is enough to satisfy the Senate, but for your private satisfaction, because I love you, I will let you know. Calpurnia here, my wife, stays me at home. She dreamt tonight. She saw my statue, which like a fountain with 100 spouts did run pure blood, and many lusty Romans came smiling and did bathe their hands in it. And these does she apply for warnings and portents and evils imminent, and on her knee hath begged me that I will stay at home today.
Well, this dream is all misinterpreted. It was a vision fair and fortunate. Your statue spouting blood in many pipes in which so many smiling Romans bathed signifies that from you great Rome shall suck reviving blood, and that great men shall press for tinctures, stains, relics, and cognizance. This, by Calpurnia's dream, is signified.
And this way have you well expounded it.
I have. When you have heard what I can say, and know it now, the Senate have concluded to give this day a crown to mighty Caesar. If you shall send them word you will not come, their minds may change. Besides, it were a mock apt to be rendered for someone to say, break up the Senate till another time when Caesar's wife shall meet with better dreams. If Caesar hide himself, shall they not whisper, oh, Caesar is afraid? Pardon me, Caesar, for my dear, dear love to your proceeding bids me tell you this, and reason to my love is liable.
How foolish do your fears seem now, Calpurnia. I am ashamed I did yield to them. Give me my robe, for I will go.
What mean you, Caesar? Think you to walk forth? You shall not stir out of your house today.
Caesar shall forth. The things that threatened me ne'er looked but on my back. When they shall see the face of Caesar, they are vanished.
Caesar, I never stood on ceremonies, yet now they fright me. There is one within. Besides the things that we have heard and seen, recounts of most horrid sights seen by the watch. A lioness hath whelped in the streets, and graves have yawned and yielded up their dead. Fierce fiery warriors fought upon the clouds in ranks and squadrons in right form of war, which drizzled blood upon the Capitol. The noise of battle hurtled in the air, horses did neigh, and dying men did groan, and ghosts did shriek and squeal about the streets. Oh, Caesar, these things are beyond all use, and I do fear them.
What can be avoided, whose end is purposed by the mighty gods? Yet Caesar shall go forth, for these predictions are to the world in general as to Caesar.
When beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blaze forth the death of princes.
Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Of all the wonders that I have yet heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. What say the augurers?
They would not have you to stir forth today, plucking the entrails of an offering forth. They could not find a heart within the beast.
The gods do in this shame of cowardice. Caesar should be a beast without a heart if he should stay at home today for fear. No, Caesar shall not. Danger knows full well that Caesar is more dangerous than he. We are two lions littered in one day, and I, the elder, am more terrible, and Caesar shall go forth.
Alas, my lord, your wisdom is consumed in confidence. Do not go forth today. Call it my fear that keeps you in the house, and not your own. We'll send Mark Antony to the Senate house, and he shall say that you are not well today. Let me, upon my knee, prevail in this.
Mark Antony shall say, I am not well. For thy humor, I will stay at home. So the wives seem to have a very strong power over the husbands here. And some of the imagery that's used, the wild animals and things like that, it kind of presages what will be coming up in a year or two in Macbeth, the whole thing. So between the three of you, are there anything that jump out at you as similarities between Portia and Brutus and Calpurnia and Caesar?
Well, the sort of the high stakes that the wives find themselves in, it immediately brought Lady Percy to my head, confronting Hotspur and stuff. These ladies have their imagery and their temperaments and their ways of talking to their husbands, but it did have like that same sort of thread as Lady Percy.
It's also similar to what's the it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not there. It's the other Roman play with the starts with a C. I can't draw it out. Where the wife and the mother are competing to have him not go to war. You have Virgilia and Volumnia. Coriolanus, that's the one. And it's a similar idea where the wife is expressing her love and her fear that he's going to go into battle and get killed. And I'm sure this is something that is very present in the audience if the audience is full of men of war, that they have the echoes of this in their own lives, that they have the urge or the push from society to go to war, but at home they have an opposite push and pull that's happening. Okay, so we are right around 10 o'clock. We'll jump forward. We're going to go a little bit over, folks. We are Act 3, Scene 1. We're going to be introducing one of our next big players. This is Mark Antony. Leahato, you want to jump in as Antony?
I doubt not of your wisdom. Let each man render me his bloody hand. First, Marcus Brutus, will I shake with you, Next, Caius Cassius, do I take your hand now. Decius Brutus, yours. Now Metellus, yours, Cinna, and my valiant Casca, yours. The last not last in love, yours, good Trebonius. Gentlemen all, alas, what shall I say? My credit now stands on such slippery ground that one of two bad ways you must conceit me, either a coward or a flatterer. That I did love thee, Caesar, oh, 'tis true. If then thy spirit look upon us now, shall it not grieve thee dearer than thy death to see thy Anthony making his peace, shaking the bloody fingers of thy foes, most noble, in the presence of thy corse? Had I as many eyes as thou hast wounds, weeping as fast as they stream forth thy blood, it would become me better than to close in terms of friendship with thine enemy. Oh, pardon me, Julius. Here wast thou bade, brave heart, here didst thou fall, and here thy hunters stand, signed in thy spoil and crimsoned in thy left. O world, thou wast the forest to this heart, and this indeed, O world, the heart of thee. How like a deer strucken by many princes dost thou here lie.
And this is obviously after the violent death of Caesar. We're starting to see the aftermath. Caesar, we've jumped past the murder of Caesar, and as was predicted, the Romans did bathe their hands in his blood. Sarah, why don't we have you take over as Antony? This is the next section, big section of Act We Scene 1.
Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Over thy wounds now do I prophesy, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. Blood and destruction shall be so in use, and dreadful objects so familiar, that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. All pity choked with custom of fell deeds, and Caesar's spirit, ranging for revenge, with 8 by his side, come hot from hell, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war. That this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion men groaning for burial.
And we have this this sense of the unnatural, the almost supernatural feeling of how a great man has fallen and how his blood has been shed. Okay, let's go to Act B, Scene 2. This is Brutus. Megan, let's have you read that one.
Be patient till the last. Romans, countrymen, and lovers, hear me for my cause, and be silent that you may hear. Believe me for mine honor, and have respect to mine honor, that you may believe. Censure me in your wisdom, and awake your senses, that you may the better judge. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of Caesar's, to him I say that Brutus's love to Caesar was no less than his. If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. Had you rather Caesar were living and die all slaves than that Caesar were dead, to live all free men? As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. There is tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. For who is here so base that and would be a bondman? If any, speak. For him I have offended. Who is here so rude that would not be a Roman? If any, speak. For him I have offended. Who here is so vile that will not love his country? If any, speak. For him I have offended. I pause for a reply.
None.
None, Brutus.
None.
None.
None, Brutus, none.
Then none have I offended. I have done no more to Caesar than you shall do to Brutus. The question of his death is enrolled in the Capitol. His glory not extenuated, wherein he was worthy, nor his offenses enforced, for which he suffered death. Here comes his body, mourned by Mark Antony, who, though he had no hand in his death, shall receive the benefit of his dying, a place in the Commonwealth, as which of you shall not? With this I depart, that, as I slew my best lover for the good of Rome, I have the same dagger for myself, when it shall please my country to need my death.
And something that really strikes me about this speech is that Brutus is of the ruling class, but here he switches from the iambic pentameter. He switches into blank verse, and it's almost as if he's bringing himself down to the level of the masses to speak to the masses in a way that they can be with him and feel him, or to better understand him. Let's jump into Act 3, Scene 2. This is Mark Antony, Leohato. Famous speech.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal, that thrice I presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure, he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? Judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me, my heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me.
And we have this almost as an answer to the appeal that Brutus has made to the people as he had brought himself down to the level of masses to speak to them. And this is very heightened language from Antony. And we have, again, almost a presaging of the major tragedies. We have the repetition of the honorable man. It's as similar to Iago with or Othello telling Iago, "Are you honest?" Similar wording there, similar use of language. Okay, let's continue with, and we have several Antony speeches kind of back to back. Let's have Sarah take over Act 3, Scene 2.
But yesterday the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he here, and none so poor to do him reverence. Oh, masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who, you all know, are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I will wrong such honorable men. But here's a parchment with the seal of Caesar I found in his closet. 'Tis his will. Let but the commons hear this testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read, and they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. Yea, beg a hair of him for memory, and dying mention it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue.
I get the sense, I don't know if you three do as well, of how Antony is placing himself above the others. He's kind of pushing Brutus down into the mire here, and he's elevating himself and positioning himself as the next rightful heir apparent to Caesar. Okay, Megan, let's have you jump in. Antony, listen to you.
If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. It was on a summer's evening, in his tent, that day he overcame the Nervi. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. Through this the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, look how the blood of Caesar followed it. As rushing out of doors to be resolved if Brutus so unkindly knocked or no. So, for Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all, for when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitors' arms, quite vanished him, quite vanquished him. Then burst his mighty heart, and in his mantle muffling up his face, even at the base of Pompey's statua, which all the while ran blood, great Caesar fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen. Then I, and you, and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops. Kind souls, what, weep you when you but behold our Caesar's vesture wounded? Look you here. Here is himself, marred, as you see, with traitors.
It's some very strong language here, that comparing Brutus with Caesar's angel, and the of course the opposite of that is after what he's done is that he's the devil or the fallen angel, or it's almost like for me it harkens to Jesus and Judas, that kind of thing, where he's raising Caesar to a level of divinity, and having the one who was the closest to him has literally stabbed him in the back and spilled his holy blood. Leahata, let's have you jump back in as Antony.
Mm-hmm. Good friends, sweet friends, let me not stir you up to such a sudden flood of mutiny. They that have done this deed are honorable. What private griefs they have, alas, I know not, that made them do it. They are wise and honorable, and will no doubt with reasons answer you. I come not, friends, to steal away your hearts. I am no orator as Brutus is, but as you know me all, a plain, blunt man, that love my friend, and that they know full well that gave me public leave to speak of him. For I have neither wit, nor words, nor worth, action, nor utterance, nor the power of speech to stir men's blood. I only speak right on. I tell you that which you yourselves do know, show you sweet Caesar's wounds, poor, poor dumb mouth, and bid them speak for me. But were I Brutus, and Brutus Antony, there were an Antony would ruffle up your spirits and put her tongue in every wound of Caesar that should move the stones of Rome to rise and mute me.
That's strong stuff. Strong stuff. So he's really riling up the masses and getting their blood boiling. Brutus, Megan, as Brutus, after all the agitation of the masses, let's jump into where Brutus is now, Act 4, Scene 3.
You have done that you should be sorry for. There is no terror, Cassius, in your threats, for I am armed so strong in honesty that they pass by me as the idle wind, which I respect not. I did send to you for certain sums of gold, which you denied me, for I can raise no money by vile means. My blood for drachmas than to wring from the hard hands of peasants in their vile trash by any indirection. I did send to you for gold to pay my legions, which you denied me. Was that done like Cassius? Should I have answered Caius Cassius so? When Marcus Brutus grows so covetous to lock such rascal counters from his friends, be ready, gods, with all your thunderbolts. Dash him to pieces.
And it seems like subliminally with the how he has that at least pay me for what I've done. Again, it has the echoes of that Jesus and Judas relationship. We're going into Act 5. We're approaching the end of our evening here tonight. Let's have a scene with some of our big players that are still around. We have Cassius, that's Leia Hutto. We have Brutus, that's Megan, and Sarah, you'll be Messala here.
Messala, this is my birthday, as this very day was Cassius born. Give me thy hand, Messala. Be thou my witness that against my will, as Pompey was, am I compelled to set upon one battle all our liberties. You know that I held Epicurus strong, and his opinion now I change my mind, and partly credit things that do presage. Coming from Sardis, on our former ensign, 2 mighty eagles fell, and they perched, gorging and feeding from our soldiers' hands, who to Philippa were here consorted us. This morning are they fled away and gone, and in their steads do ravens, crows, and kites fly o'er our heads and downward look on us. As we were sickly prey, their shadows seen a canopy most fatal under which our army lies, ready to give up the ghost.
Believe not so.
I but believe it partly. For I am fresh of spirit and resolved to meet all perils very constantly.
Even so, Lucilius.
Now, most noble Brutus, the gods today stand friendly that we may, lovers in peace, lead on our days to age. But since the affairs of men rest still uncertain, let's reason with the worst that may befall. If we do lose this battle, then is this the very last time we shall speak together? What are you then determined to do?
And that's where we will leave our audience for tonight. What are we determined to do? It's a lot of the verbiage, a lot of the rhetoric that's used here seems eerily similar to some of the political smears that you might see if you watch, any of the major political parties waging verbal war with each other. So it's even though it's nearly 500 years ago, it is still very timely, still very current. And of course, we don't have it here. We won't proceed with it tonight, but we know that after all the dust is settled, that Octavian comes in, and he kind of swoops in and takes the win, and he becomes the next the great first emperor of Rome after Caesar's death and the infighting between all the others. So there's a lot of machinations and this almost tentative fear of who's going to swoop in and take the throne after all the bloodshed, and whether that is an analog for James I of Scotland, who is kind of on the horizon as coming in to take over for Elizabeth. Whether we can make that connection or not, that's I don't know if we'll ever settle that. That's up for a debate, but it certainly is fodder for an interesting argument. So let us say thank you to all the people who joined us here in our live program tonight. Let us thank our performers, our wonderful performers. We have Leia Hutto Robinson. Thank you very much, Leia Hutto. We have Sarah Hines. Thank you for joining us. Sarah pulled you away from your rehearsal. We have Megan Greener. Thank you so much, Megan. I truly appreciate you lending your time and your wonderful talents to us tonight. And to our audience, thank you for giving us your time tonight. Whether you're watching it live with us here tonight or you're watching on the replay, this will be rebroadcast in its entirety here on Instagram. It will also be transferred over to our Facebook and our YouTube pages and elsewhere. So look for New York Shakespeare on social media. You'll find all this content along with all of our archives, all of our past interviews, all of our past discussions. We will bid farewell to our thank you to Anita. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. We're getting a lot of love from the audience here. So we'll bid farewell to our actors. Before we send you off into the night, Any final words you want to wish us? Any plugs you want to send us up with? Where we can connect with you, where we can find the next great things you're up to. Leah Hato, where can people connect with you?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me do this. It's always it's a blast. Opportunities that I never probably would get. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
The only thing that's coming up is a filming project that's doing in the end of March, and then something that's going to be released in the fall. And I can't say anything about it.
Right. Right.
But it's going to be on Netflix.
Okay.
So
All right.
Yes.
Fantastic. Looking forward. Excellent. Okay. Sarah, anywhere can connect with you and see what you're up to?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Rodney. This has been a blast. It's been awesome reading with y'all too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Instagram, follow me. I'm usually posting whatever I'm doing or pictures of my dog. So either way, you're probably into that. And then I would be remiss to not plug Hedgepig Ensemble, which is the ensemble theater company that I've been a member of for like 6 or 7 years now. Rodney mentioned it at the top, but our big project right now for the last couple of years has been a project called Expand the Canon, which is a curated list of classical plays by women and underrepresented genders that have sort of, for the most part, been like lost to history. And we've been slowly and surely uncovering them. It's a call to action to produce them and to redefine the classics and invite not just old dead white men to the table. So please check out, we love Shakespeare, we love Chekhov, we love Ibsen, but there's room for more. So please check out Expand the Canon. That's right. That's right. Thanks for letting me plug it.
Sure, absolutely. Megan?
I've been involved in a couple of plays that are in development, which might have some public readings and things, and then maybe hopefully the next step coming in the spring and then later this year. So I'll definitely plug those on my Instagram, which you can easily find me. I'm on Facebook. If you want to look at pictures, I have my website, megangreener.com. Otherwise, I would also very much need to plug Hamlet Isn't Dead as well. They're back to doing their main stages. They're back to doing their scrappy thing, the 825th best Shakespeare company in the city. They've got some great stuff coming up. So
I think, does Hamlet Isn't Dead have a production coming up soon? I think maybe in April or something like that?
Yes. I believe it's, David, is it Macbeth? It's that one. Let's just say it's that one. If I'm wrong, you could check the Instagram.
Okay, all right, and that's Hamlet Isn't Dead. All right, so Megan, Sarah, Leah Hato, I thank you again. You guys are fantastic. I'm going to bid you each a farewell, and then we'll go into our wrap-up with our final plugs. So Leah Hato will bid you farewell. Thank you so much. And we will say farewell to you, Sarah.
Good night.
And last but not least, farewell to Megan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay,
so this has been the New York Shakespeare deep dive into Julius Caesar. Beware the Ides of March. The Ides of March are coming up. It's coming up tomorrow, March 15th. This program, again, if you didn't catch the whole thing, it will be rebroadcast in its entirety. It'll be saved on our Instagram on the bottom and the middle panel. You have 3 panels on the bottom below the main Instagram area. The one on the left is all the it's a chronological listing of all the things that we've done on Instagram, the images and different videos. In the middle panel where it's a play button, that is all of our live videos. So you can catch all of our past interviews, including this discussion, our panel discussions, our interviews, all the different various programs that we've had. The archives can all be found right here on Instagram. You can also connect with us on Facebook, facebook.com/NYShakespeare, and on our YouTube page. On our YouTube page, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of additional videos, both individual interviews and collective evenings of interviews, live discussions, panel discussions, all sorts of programs, hundreds and hundreds of programs, and that's all free and it's all there for your consumption. I urge you all, get out there, support your local Shakespeare companies, especially now that we are getting back out there. Omicron is finally under control, hopefully, fingers crossed, and people are getting back out there. I urge you to get out there and support Hamlet Isn't Dead, the Hedgepig Ensemble, and all the different various things that are coming up. Of course, we will be back at the end of the month with our Instagram Live interview program that's coming up on the last Monday of the month, and we have a lot of exciting things coming up after that. Again, my name is Rodney Hakeem for New York Shakespeare. I thank you all for your time, for joining us tonight. Have a great night, and beware the Ides of March. Have a good night, everyone.